Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Sometimes the best way to find a living is to stay right where you are and study with UAS online. Career-specific distance programs from the University of Alaska Southeast are the fastest way to increase your earning power.
We connect all over the world.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us for Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. Up on the advisory map, flood advisory here, Susitna Valley, specifically the Yetna River, out for a little longer there for some minor flooding as it remains above flood stage for tonight. Onto the satellite, this is the system coming northward here, really just a lot of moisture streaming northward. A couple of weak lows embedded in the flow there at the surface. One right in here sort of dissipating as it moves on in. Another one back there, again, quite weak, but moisture coming northward, keeping it cloudy and rainy across southern Alaska. Not too bad out toward Bristol Bay, though. But rainfall amounts not all that heavy. Wettest there along the Prince William Sound area, Kenai Peninsula, and some moisture on up to the north. Thunderstorms breaking out this afternoon up here from Koyukuk Valley back on out toward the coastal areas there, toward Selawik. And kind of a mostly cloudy day here over the southeast coast. Some showers up there to the north, clouds up along the Arctic coast, and a few breaks, looks like, over the Yukon Delta, or Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta. And then out to the west, we've got this system out here, low pressure area right through here, weakening front. Really not doing much. Pretty nice day over the Pribilofs today. No rainfall and looked like VFR flying all the way down into the eastern Aleutians. Could have been a little bit of moisture with this here out actually west of Unalaska today, but pretty gusty winds. The gales gusts 45 to 50 miles per hour, mostly from Adak on out to Shemya and up over the western Bering Sea. On the chart, there's that low center. Pretty rather moderate here out over the western Bering, and the tighter gradient here across the Aleutians. And then that winds pushing that front eastward. Again, pretty weak, really not much of a thermal gradient. If anything, that warmer air is in behind the occluded front back in this area. So really not that much action going on with the frontal boundary itself, just the gusty winds following in behind. Weak low off Kodiak Island. Again, the clouds, higher pressure down here to the southeast, and that south to north flow pushing moisture right up to the North Gulf Coast. Weak frontal boundary right in through here. And rainfall amounts today, heaviest again, western Prince William Sound, down along the Kenai Peninsula, where anywhere from a quarter to a third of an inch of rain fell during the day today. Seldovia, for example, picked up about a third of an inch, with lighter amounts onto the east. Few showers there over the northern Panhandle. And cloudy skies, though, most areas all the way down to the south. Some clearing over the interior allowed temperatures to rise into the mid-70s in some locations, particularly, for example, Nenana reached about 75 this afternoon. Isolated thunderstorms here over the eastern interior, a little more extensive now from about Bettles west on out to Selawik. But nothing really widespread or very heavy. That's just where most of the strikes were lighting up here after 3 p.m., around 4 p.m., right through this zone here, where there was enough afternoon heating to trigger those thunderstorms, and otherwise showers back down across the mountains here and up over the eastern Brooks Range area. For tonight, we'll see this system gradually moves eastward, but still good south to north flow here. So there'll be a narrow band of moderate rain, possibly heavy at times, about Yakutat over to Cape Yakataga. Lighter amounts back to the west, but cloudy, showery conditions, periods of light rain right into northern Cook Inlet. drying out down to the south now. A few isolated showers, Kodiak on up into Kamishak Bay, but not too bad here over Bristol Bay. Look for some light rain and fog to come into the Alaska Peninsula as that front pushes northward. Otherwise, back here, just mostly cloudy, showery conditions over the southeast coast. Showers here in the west and southwest. Look for a possible clearing there. Central interior, mostly dry here all the way out to the Arctic coast. Patchy fog, continued areas of low clouds more than the fog, creating IFR conditions up in that area. But easterly flow probably a little bit better on the west side. And looks like a pretty good chance of rain and fog, and increase in the winds there for the Pribilofs. And continued pretty gusty on the winds here back over the western and central Aleutians. And for tomorrow, that low tracks eastward right to about this position at 991 millibars. So weakening a little bit, but not all that much. Clouds, showers scattered, Kodiak Island up across the southwest interior. Chance of thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon there over the Kuskokwim Mountains and maybe the northwestern Alaska Range area. And again, some isolated thunderstorms over the interior up in that area, but a band of moisture here, showers and rain, a little more continuous than either to the northeast or to the southwest. Will be seen from Cook Inlet right up toward Kotzebue Sound. And again, the heaviest rain a little farther east now, but still zeroing in on the Yakutat area there with just isolated showers over the northern panhandle with mostly cloudy skies everywhere else. Could see some more clearing, or the best chance of seeing any clearing will be down here in the southern areas. And otherwise, really not much change here. For Saturday, it looks like that front will, or for tomorrow night, that front will move eastward. And the trough behind it will catch up. And so Saturday, first day of the weekend, looks pretty cloudy and wet for the panhandle. Again, more moisture in store for the North Gulf Coast. Periods of rain continue. This low now edging across the peninsula, and by Saturday afternoon should be roughly in about that position, at about the same intensity that it will be tomorrow afternoon. So southeast flow, rain, fog, and not too bad on the winds though. For Kodiak Island, just cloudy and wet, probably some IFR there, and that'll extend right up into southern Cook Inlet. Still looks kind of wet here for northern Cook Inlet and Susitna Valley, mostly cloudy, definitely, if not just flat out cloudy. But the heaviest rain, Prince William Sound, and no change over the interior. Variably cloudy with showers, isolated thunderstorms, a trough right through here, bringing a little bit more continuous precipitation there, or a little more numerous showers, although they'll probably just be scattered along this line here from Kaktovik down across the Brooks Range into the Seward Peninsula there. Look for showery conditions, cloudy skies. Easterly flow here a little bit drier, so partly sunny skies breaking out from about Point Lay on down to Kivalina, Noatak Valley areas for some sunshine there, maybe a few breaks over the interior, and high pressure up to the north. Look for east winds at about 20 knots for Saturday there for the eastern Arctic coast and areas of low clouds and fog. And then the tighter gradient here with the low in this position, somewhat higher pressure out over the western Aleutians, so pretty good gradient north to northwest winds here right across the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians. Look for gales in this area, small craft advisories back across the southwest coast. Lighter winds for Bristol Bay though, with cloudy skies, areas of rain or showers with that. And then of course wet conditions, as I mentioned, back across Kodiak Island. Lighter winds as they head west, becoming pretty light and probably variable out over the western Aleutians. Temperatures across the southeast coast today, upper 50s, to lower 60s there with the clouds, 59 at Craig, 61 Sitka, and also at Juneau, 61 degrees, Yakutat 58 Cordova, Valdez. They managed to reach 55, 58 both in Kenai and Homer, about the same in Kodiak, mid to upper 50s across the Copper River Basin. Some areas warmer, others a little cooler. North of the mountains there, Northway up to 70, 71 in Fairbanks, and as I mentioned, Nenana reached 75. Otherwise, Tanana, mid-afternoon, 69 degrees, mostly in the 60s up to the north there, Battle 65, and 63 over at Fort Yukon. And through the Brooks Range, mid to upper 50s, 57 at Atuvik, Umiat Airfield, 50 degrees, otherwise 40s along the Arctic coast, couple of exceptions being 39 at Kaktovik, 54 at Point Lay, 60s here over the northwest, That's Deering was 61, 61 also at Galena, with Kotzebue at 63, 57 in Nome, and Golovin picked up about a quarter of an inch of rain during the day today with that moisture there, mostly in the 60s and 50s here with the cooler conditions, mid-50s out along the southwest coast. Cooler yet, Savunga just 45 degrees there, but Wales, or Teller was up to 52. Mid-50s over the Pribilofs, both 56, St. George and St. Paul. A little chillier at Shemya with 52, otherwise mid to upper 50s here for the central Aleutians, and some 60s showing up along the Alaska Peninsula with 61 at Falls Pass, Sand Point, and Pilot Point with King Salmon reaching 62. Overnight lows for tonight, rather mild, 55 to 60-ish here for the southeast coast, otherwise 40s and 50s. South central Alaska, well into the 50s though, Cook Inlet, Susitna Valley, and the Kenai Peninsula, lower 50s Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, all of the Aleutians, Bering Sea, 30s for the North Slope and the Arctic coast, mid to upper, otherwise 40s. And for the highs tomorrow, 60s, Seward Peninsula, Noatak Valley, and the southwest here, 65 to 70, on in toward the central Tanana Valley areas, and cooling back to the 40s for the Arctic coast, and 50s to maybe some lower 60s here, maybe mid 60s, Susitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula possible, upper 60s over the southern southeast coast, definitely cooler on up to the north. And for flying weather tomorrow morning, with that frontal boundary, you've got some IFR, especially with that southerly wind flow comes on shore there, right around Yakutat and a ways to the west, a little bit to the east there. Marginal VFR central and northern southeast coast, extending back across the Gulf of Alaska to Fognak Island and the southern Kenai Peninsula. And this covers Prince William Sound right on into Passage Canal. Arctic coast, look for IFR conditions to start the day out tomorrow, especially on the east side, proving in the afternoon there on the west side. And, well, tomorrow morning, IFR Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, all the way down across the Pribilofs, right about this area there, so that puts the Aleutians mostly in a marginal type condition. And for passes, Anatuvik, VFR, VFR also for Adigan, and Lake Clark and Merrill, both VFR. Rainy, looks kind of marginal, and windy, VFR becoming marginal. For Isabel, marginal VFR, but staying VFR north of the mountains and north of the pass on Mentasta as well, it'll be VFR. Otherwise, through the pass and a little to the south, marginal. Tanita, marginal VFR. Portage, marginal. And Chilkoot and White, both marginal. Looking at the freezing levels, about 8,000 feet here over western Alaska, out into the northern Bering Sea. Then it warms up to 10 and 12,000 feet there over the southeast coast. And 14,000 feet here, very close to Adak and Atka. It's a little bit of a gradient right through here, dropping to about 10,000 feet over the Alaska Peninsula. And icing with the one batch here coming northward, and then that stuff moving off to the northwest into the interior. Areas of light to isolated, very isolated moderate rime icing. Could be a little more widespread of the moderate variety right along the North Gulf Coast tomorrow and possibly across the coastal mountains. But that'll spread up to the Alaska Peninsula and then extend down along the frontal boundary there into the eastern Gulf of Alaska. Icing free back to the west, up to the north. Another batch of moisture will bring some icing possibilities here into the southeast Bering Sea. Again, this tracking eastward there with the main system into the Alaska Peninsula. But as you can see, most of it off the coast, catching maybe Cape Newenham up to Nunivak Island. Icing free out to the west. And looking at the winds aloft, we've got this upper level trough back in here now. Tomorrow, tracking to about that position. So south to north flow here, keeping it wet for the most part, especially along the North Gulf Coast. Here we've got south-southeast at about 60 knots. Higher pressure ridge right through this location. Strongest winds here south of the eastern Aleutians there at about 100 knots right out of the west-northwest. 9,000 foot winds, not too bad south to north, but only about 10 to 15, becoming 5 to 15 or 5 to 10 over the interior. We've got some easterlies right across Barrow at 15 knots. Pretty light winds here along the Panhandle. There was a narrow band of stronger conditions there off the coast over the eastern Gulf of Alaska, 25 to 35 knots. And then those westerlies here, still pretty brisk. Actually from Nunivak Island easterly, turning northerly here just west of the Pribilofs. back to the northwest, sweeping around that low center, 45 to 50 knots across central and eastern Aleutians, winds diminishing out to the west. And at 3,000 feet, kind of a trough up here coming northwards, that makes the winds a little more easterly there along the North Gulf Coast across the Kenai. Only about 10 to 20 knots. Here's a stronger wind south to north there. Actually, those winds push right up into Canada there at about 25 to 35 knots. High pressure, much lighter winds over the Panhandle, pretty light over the interior, 5 to 10 knots. 25 knots in advance of that low system peninsula across Bristol Bay. Northeasterly start out 10 there near Kotzebue, pick up to 25 knots in Nunivak Island. And for the Arctic coast, easterlies at 10 to 20. And for turbulence, looking something like this, really none over the interior or along the Panhandle, Gulf of Alaska. Could be some light to very isolated moderate chop here, Cape Newinam, up across Nunivak Island, Tooksuk Bay, those areas. But heavier stuff here with the stronger winds from Atka across the eastern Aleutians over to maybe False Pass. Could be a little moderate there, otherwise lighter to isolated moderate here from Sandpoint or roughly about Chignik all the way out to Kiska Island. And after the break of Stargazer, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Finding the 5 naked eye planets. Hey there, stargazers. I'm Dean Regas, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. We're here to help you find your way around the sky. There are 5 planets that you can see in the nighttime sky without a telescope. Quick, Dean, name the 5 naked eye planets.
There's Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
While some of them are easy to see because they're so bright,
Like Venus, Jupiter, and Mars at times.
Saturn can be only so bright, and Mercury,
Well, Mercury can be tough to find since it never strays far from the glare of the sun.
earlier in the year you may have heard that we have had all 5 of these planets visible at one time, a very rare event.
But if you missed it, you get a second chance this month.
So much for it being rare.
Oh, let's show you. Okay, we're going planet hunting, and to see 3 of the 5 naked eye planets, it is going to require precise timing and a clear view to the western horizon. We have our sky set up for August 18th at 8:45 p.m. The sun has just set, so only the brightest stars are popping out.
And 3 of these stars are actually planets. The brightest of the planets, and the one you might spot first, is Venus. It's so bright that it will look like an airplane or a UFO. Venus can be within 27 million miles of Earth, but right now it's almost 150 million miles from us and clear across the solar system.
We just recently got some amazing close-up pictures of Venus from a Japanese space probe.
Nice! The second brightest planet in the western sky will be Jupiter. We've been seeing Jupiter all spring and summer, but it's now almost 600 million miles from Earth.
The Juno spacecraft just arrived at Jupiter last month, and hopefully we'll get some awesome close-ups of the planet and its 67 moons.
And the final planet to look for in the western sky, and toughest to see, is Mercury. Mercury is a tiny planet barely 3,000 miles wide, but it is much closer to us than Venus right now at only 80 million miles.
The cool thing about planets is that they wander across the background stars. Let's see how they move from night to night and how this triangle will change.
Venus will appear to get closer and closer to Jupiter. And on the evening of August 27th, oh my gosh, I feel a dance coming on. We will have a super conjunction of Venus and Jupiter.
Oh man, I cannot wait. Now we're facing southwest at 10 p.m. The trio of planets, Venus, Jupiter, and Mercury, have set for the evening, and that leaves these 2 planets to take the stage. Mars and Saturn will be hanging out here with the constellation of Scorpius the Scorpion.
Mars is the brighter of the 2 and should shine with a steady reddish-orange glow, while Saturn will be the steady yellow-colored light just above Mars.
As we look forward in time, we can watch these planets wander night after night. By the night of August 23rd, Mars will slide directly between Saturn and a reddish star called Antares.
Cool lineup.
Oh, wait a second. We've talked about the 5 naked eye planets. What about the other 3?
Oh yeah, well, you can find Earth easily enough day or night.
There it is.
Yep. And the other 2 planets, Uranus and Neptune, can only be seen in a telescope. If you scan the skies after midnight, you might be able to find them. They're both tough targets since Uranus is 1.8 billion miles from Earth right now, and Neptune is almost 2.7 billion miles away. So, there you have it. How to find the 5 naked eye planets. Look for the trio of Venus, Jupiter, and Mercury low in the west between 8:45 and 9 p.m.
And then look southwest to find Saturn above the brighter planet Mars.
And don't forget to say hi to the Earth.
Hi, Earth! But don't keep looking down for too long. We want you to
Keep looking up.
Welcome back. Looking at the sea ice analysis here. Heavier stuff back out to the northwest of Barrow, then some heavier brash ice concentrations here up to the north. And forecast maybe sometime Sunday, Monday, if the winds come more onshore, more northerly, some of this stuff will start drifting back on down toward the coastline. Moving on to coastal forecasts here for the southeast coast, south 10 or 15 to 20 knots. We've got small craft advisories there on the north coast for 25 to 30 knot winds with 9 to 11 foot seas up here for tomorrow. Small craft advisories, northern Lynn Canal, south 25, dropping back to about 15, and then around to the northwest for Clarence Strait at 15. Outlook for Saturday, small craft advisories, southerlies on the south coast, southeast on the north coast there, all at 25 knots with seas running 8 to 9 feet. Small craft advisories now for southeast winds there for Clarence Strait with 5 foot seas and winds dropping off to 15 for northern Lynn Canal. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, east at 10, 2 foot seas in the forecast. Light variable winds northern Cook Inlet, light northeasterlies south of the Forelands. Pretty light winds tomorrow around Kodiak Island, just 10 to 15 knots from the south to southeast to mainly an easterly direction there from Kamishak Bay across Shelikof Strait with pretty slight seas as well. Southeast 10 to 20 knots there for the North Gulf Coast with 5 to 6 foot seas. And then for Saturday, east winds 15 for Prince William Sound, north 15 Cook Inlet, south of the Forelands, northeast 20. Then easterlies 25 knots, small craft advisories there for Kamishak Bay, but 10 knots lighter for Shelikof Strait with 4 foot seas. South 15 east of Kodiak Island, the easterlies 20 knots here for the Barren Islands and the North Gulf Coast, turning a little more southeasterly there over to the east with 7 to 8 foot seas. For the Alaska Peninsula, southeast 15 tomorrow, otherwise small craft advisory south to southwest, 25 to 30 for the peninsula, lighter over towards Sitkinak. And for Saturday, north to northwest, 30 knots here coming across the Alaska Peninsula. Low pressure right in this area, so southeast 20, Sitkinak to about Chignecay, and then east to northeast of 20 for Bristol Bay. Out in the Aleutians, gales tomorrow, central over to well into the eastern Aleutians, west-southwest, 25 to 40 knots with higher seas, and then dropping off the small craft advisories back to the west. For Saturday, much lighter winds out here, 10 to 15 knots under higher pressure, still carrying gale force winds here out of the northwest in the 30 to 35 knot range. That'll be mostly from Atka all the way over to Dutch Harbor and Unalaska. And again, those seas still pretty high here, 11 to maybe as high as 15 feet. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, southeasterlies at 25, small crafts on the north side there for easterly winds. Lightest now for St. Lawrence Island and 25 knot winds there for St. Matthew and the Pribilofs northeast at 20 knots, seas 10 feet. And then northwest at 30 knots the next day, picking it up there with 11 foot seas, small craft advisories for the southwest coast there. Out of the north, seas 7 feet, lighter winds back to the west, and even lighter yet up towards St. Lawrence Island. And along the Arctic coast, there are easterlies tomorrow, 20 knots, 4-foot seas. Central coast comes down to about 15 knots and back up to 20 knots here. And then from Cape Thompson on down to the Strait, northeast at 10. And for Saturday, northerly at 15 there, coming around more easterly, or due easterly there for the west side. And that east wind at 15 knots extends all the way to demarcation point, with those seas running about 3 or maybe 4 feet. For tonight, again, frontal system here edging its way eastward, but a few waves rolling northward. So there's going to be a narrow area of heavier rain there, rolling right into the eastern Gulf Coast. Yakutat, cloudy, showery, much lighter precipitation for the Panhandle. Kind of wet northern Cook Inlet this evening, drying out back to the southwest. This system pushes the front and some rain into the Alaska Peninsula, and the windier conditions back here to the southern Bering Sea and over the Aleutians again, much lighter with less gradient up here to the north, with just some scattered showers over the interior, maybe some clearing periods. And tomorrow, that rain area continues here from Prince William Sound. Areas of light rain all the way up to Kotzebue Sound. Isolated thunderstorms, heaviest here along the North Gulf Coast around Yakutat. Cloudy for the Panhandle. More rain with the main low center coming in from the west there. And again, isolated thunderstorms possible here over the interior tomorrow, mostly to the northwest of the main precipitation zone through here, or off to the southwest. And gusty winds back over the eastern Aleutians up to near the Pribilofs. But then for Saturday, that low system comes in, rain, Kodiak Island, and fog, rain for the North Gulf Coast, right into the Panhandle. It starts tomorrow night, late tomorrow night for the southeast coast. Showers, isolated thunderstorms in the interior, gusty north to northwest winds right through there.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.